Our next reader teaches acting and creative writing in hospitals, elementary schools, high schools, and colleges, and at the Lake County Jail. Yeah. She has... Man, all right. I think she has some fans. Maybe from the Lake County Jail. She has written plays that have been produced by Running with Scissors, Chicago Dramatists, Trapdoor, and others in Chicago and beyond, and has told stories at Loose Chicks, Upright Citizens Brigade, Story Sessions, Misspoken, Tellin' Tales, 10X, and True Story. She recently ventured into the world of stand-up comedy and is searching for an open mic that will allow her to maintain her 9 o'clock bedtime, which we are violating tonight. Please welcome Lindsay Porter.
That's quite a reception.
Got a little more?
I'm impressed. I don't know who paid people to come here. I have to lower the mic. That's how short I am. Hi. Okay, I'm gonna lower it a little more. Okay, here we go. So, my phone rang, but I didn't recognize the number. But I knew that voice. You never forget the voice of your first best friend. I hadn't seen Audrey in years, and she wanted to know if I was going to her 30th high school reunion. I wasn't sure. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. We agreed to talk it over and think it over and talk again in a few weeks. I remember the first time I laid eyes on Audrey. She was swinging way high on the swings, and she jumped off and landed right at my feet. And I felt something like love at first sight. And before the afternoon was over, we were inseparable. Best friends. I had this series of books from the 1940s called The Childhood of Famous Americans that belonged to my mother. And I liked the girl books best of all. They were bound in these orange cloth covers and had titles like Harriet Tubman, Freedom Girl, and Dorothea Dix, Girl Reformer. These girls wore petticoats and long dresses, but they fought injustice and they were very brave. I was obsessed with these old-fashioned heroines and spent much of my childhood traipsing around the suburbs in a bonnet my grandmother made for me, pretending to be an abolitionist or a suffragette. Audrey was a more modern girl. She introduced me to Harriet the Spy and Wacky Packages. She had a shag haircut and listened to the Partridge Family. Even though we had different tastes, Audrey and I were kindred spirits in all the ways that really count. I could be myself with her, and she with me. The only way I can explain it is she was my kind of person. She was also my ticket to an exclusive club. A club I never would have had entree to if I hadn't been her best friend. It was called the Shelley Sugarman Club. And its founder and president was this girl named Shelley Sugarman. And Shelley is what we would call nowadays a queen bee. She was the most popular girl in first grade at Lincoln School. Not because she was the most well-liked, but because of the sheer force of her ambition. She recruited Audrey for membership in her club, and Audrey agreed to join if I could come too. So Shelley looked me up and down. I guess she can come if she can follow the rules. And my memories of the Shelley Sugarman Club meetings are very hazy. You might think that's because they occurred over 40 years ago, but I'm chalking it up to PTSD. All I remember was that Shelley held court at the meetings in her bedroom, and she decided who got to speak, who would play house and be the mom or the dad or the babysitter. Shelley was the arbiter of all things. And her best friend, Jane, was her sidekick, her minion, willing to do anything in the service of Shelley's limitless lust for power. By winter, Audrey summoned the courage to quit the club. I didn't want to go to those dreadful meetings by myself, but I couldn't imagine quitting. I mean, I could never stand up to Shelley like that. Well, it turns out I didn't have to, because days after Audrey quit, Jane, the minion, approached me to say that Shelley wanted to meet with me by the monkey bars. Shelley delivered the news with little emotion. You don't really fit in, so you're not in my club anymore. I felt a little relief and a stab in the pain in my stomach. I was in school with Shelley for 11 more years after that, but I have no memory of her ever speaking to me again. Eventually, we moved on to junior high, where I took a nosedive from tolerated to total outcast. Audrey had new friends, and I had a new crop of tormentors, and chief among them was a girl named Lori, who had really nailed down the whole sarcasm thing. Wow, you really like reading old books. That's so cool. Nice shoes, where'd you get them, like Kmart? She had a special interest in my wardrobe. You have like 6 pairs of painter's pants, making it sound like an accusation. I really wondered why Lori had it out for me. I mean, she wasn't my kind of person, but I couldn't imagine being mean to her. But once she and a few of her popular friends decided, for reasons that are still a little unclear to me, that I was a weirdo, there was no hope for me. My unpopularity grew to the point where I guess I actually was popular in the literal sense, in that everybody knew who I was. Audrey and I had spent nearly every day together for 5 years, but now we barely spoke, and I couldn't blame her. I was social poison and could only bring her down with me. I passed her in the hallway. She glanced at me briefly, a pained glance that whispered, "I'm sorry," even as it shouted, "Stay away!" And I thought about a poster I'd seen with this picture of a dove being released into a blue sky that said, "If you love something, set it free," etc. And I knew there was no use in trying to hold on to our friendship. One day, Lori's mother volunteered in our class, and I was surprised that she was really a lovely woman. Patient, kind. She even complimented me on a poem I wrote. And I looked over at Lori and thought, I bet her mom has no idea how mean she is to other kids, how mean she is to me. Maybe at home, Lori is actually nice. And for a moment, I saw no trace of the bully that I'd known for 2 years. I only saw this skinny little girl with braces and bright red hair and a really nice mom. And the next day, Lori and some other kids covered my locker with Frankenstein stickers, and in case I didn't get the hint, they wrote my name on the bottom of one of the stickers. I was at the bottom of the social ladder. The only person beneath me was a cross-eyed girl named Jennifer who smelled funny and always seemed to have head lice. This afforded me an odd level of freedom. I mean, it couldn't get any worse, and yet I was still alive. I thought about the girls I'd read about when I was little. Did you know Clara Barton began nursing the sick when she was only 11? Mary McLeod Bethune was a slave and was beaten just for learning how to read. So I gathered my courage from them. One afternoon, our social studies teacher got called out of the room and left 25 7th graders alone together. Jennifer of the head lice was there, and so was I, and a group of kids began verbally abusing her. I felt this rising, righteous anger. It was one thing to abuse me. I mean, it's true, I really didn't know how to act around other kids, but deep down, despite everything, I knew there wasn't really anything wrong with me. But Jennifer was different. She was in speech therapy and special ed. She didn't have Jane Addams or Lucretia Mott to lift her up. So I walked to the front of the class as a bunch of kids circled around Jennifer, and they began shoving her, using her body in a game of hot potato. And I channeled the souls of my heroines, and I pushed my way in. I took a moment. Does it make you feel better to pick on somebody who's weaker than you? Do you feel cool because you can hurt somebody's feelings? What did Jennifer ever do to you to justify the way you treat her? And I took my moment, and I turned around, and I walked away. And things were better for me after that. I mean, I still didn't really have any friends, but nobody was openly mean to me, and I was mostly ignored until high school. And my high school was too big for any powerful cliques to form, and bullying was so 7th grade. I became a theater kid. Audrey spent her time in the art room painting. Shelley was captain of the cheerleading squad, and the only time I heard her speak was through a megaphone, commanding people to show more school spirit. I have had 2 miscarriages and a kidney transplant, and I believe that 7th grade was the worst year of my life. I say that in all honesty. But I got over it. It was a long, slow process that involved beat poetry and binge drinking, but I got over it. So I called Audrey. Yeah, I said, I'm going. I mean, I'll go if you go. Okay, so we were doing this thing. And I honestly got a bit nostalgic for Lincoln School and the monkey bars, for Audrey, my first best friend, and even for Shelley and Lori and all the kids who are now almost 50 years old. I mean, surely they've had their trials too in the last 30 years. And I'd like to see them, because they are the only ones who know what I mean when I say, I remember the smell of the school library and that little playhouse in the back of Mrs. Drager's first grade classroom. So I start to get excited even for the reunion, and I pick out a dress, casual but a little funky. I want to show I'm okay being different, being myself, but I wax my eyebrows, get a nice haircut. I creep on Shelley and Lori on Facebook, and they look like really nice women. Shelley, okay, Michelle now, has 3 kids, and Lori teaches yoga and posts quotes from the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh. And I start to imagine this scenario where I will talk to Shelley and Lori, and there'll be this group of us from Lincoln School laughing and drinking wine and catching up. And when the moment is just right, I will bring up the Shelley Silverman Club, Sugarman Club. Some names have been changed protectively. I was a little too into that. And Michelle will laugh and admit that she was quite the bossy pants back then. And Lori will say, wow, I guess I was just scared, you know, a gawky girl with Bozo the clown hair who had to attack someone before she was attacked. And I'll forgive her, and we'll hug and plan to meet for yoga and lattes very soon. So I meet Audrey in the lobby outside the ballroom, and I immediately feel at ease. I mean, I knew then, and I know now, that she is my kind of person. I was 6, but I was the same person that I am now, and my instincts were right. Audrey is an art therapist, self-effacing with a quick wit, and I'm really happy we decided to come here. And I see my high school friend Marcy, who is a lawyer who's argued before the Illinois State Supreme Court, and I giggle with Jessica, who went to Harvard and started an NGO in Tanzania, and Dan, who'd been this gawky, quiet boy who's become a confident and funny man who campaigns for LGBT rights. And this feels really good. And then I hear a shriek, and it is Shelley, barreling toward Audrey and me with, who else, Jane, the minion, by her side. Lincoln School picture! And Shelley grabs the side of my head and the side of Audrey's head and bumps our heads together and forces us into a kneeling position and puts her head over ours at the top of the pyramid, commands Jane, take a picture with your iPhone, and without so much as a good to see you or a how you doing, disappears into the ballroom as Jane scampers along beside her. And then I know. Right then. Your people are your people. The ones who are not your people will never be your people. I run into Lori as I retrieve my coat on my way out. Hi, Lindsay. Beautiful dress. I honestly cannot tell if she is making fun of me. And the coat check girl hands Lori her Stella McCartney vegan leather jacket. And I stand there with my ticket in my hand, and I really want to say something to Lori, but I'm not sure how to say it. So I hold out my ticket. I want to tell her. I always imagined she was nicer than she pretended to be. And the girl hands me my sweater jacket, and I stuff the sprinkly dollar bill into the tip jar. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna talk to Lori. And a cold whoosh of October night, and the door swings shut, and she's gone. Thank you.